Hello, welcome back to the Dating After a Divorce podcast. I am your host, Shadi Curry, your Dating After a Divorce coach. So today I am going to share with you the replay of a workshop session that I held for my audience called How to Achieve Any Goal, Even If You Have Failed Before. So last week on the podcast, I believe I announced that I was holding a 3-day workshop this week, and that started yesterday, the 24th of January, 2023. So that was the first day. And I'm sharing the replay today. Usually I share it by email, but I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and pop it on the podcast this week as a podcast episode. So I hope you enjoy this webinar, How to Achieve Any Goal, Even If You Have Failed Before. We do have 2 more days of the workshop. So if you are listening to this on the 25th of January, there is another session tonight at 7 p.m. CST. And the link to join will be in the show notes. And there's one more session tomorrow of this 3-day workshop. Tonight, we're going to talk about how to change your old habits and old relationship patterns. And tomorrow, the 26th of January, we will cover the 5 essentials for finding a new partner after divorce. Okay, with that, enjoy this webinar. Hi, it's good to see everyone. Hey, y'all. It is so good to have you all here. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. I just need to get my desktop situated real quick. Hold on. I need to find some of my buttons so that I will be super organized during the call. No, that's probably not going to happen. I will probably not be super organized, but that's okay. I'm going to try. All right. I have found the participant screen. So now I know where we all are. And then I have my PowerPoint. Welcome. I'm so delighted to have everyone here who was able to join live. I believe there are about 55 of us that are signed up. So I don't know how many people will join live, but I'm just so delighted that you all are here. For those of you just joining, just mute yourself when you come in. I also have the mute button here. So, if we have any noise that starts happening, I will hit the mute button because I found it. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Happy Tuesday. Tuesday is my favorite day. I typically don't do calls on Tuesdays, so I don't have like client calls. So it's like my happy day because I just get to do whatever I want. And one of the things I'm doing today is spending it with you. So we are talking about how to create your extraordinary life and love after a divorce. I am going to share my screen and just sort of set the agenda and we'll get started. I think people are joining okay. No one seems to have any trouble. So I think we can go ahead and get started. All right, let's go here. Share that screen. I don't think I did that right. I think I need to go into like a slideshow. Hold on, I'm almost there. View. You know what? I don't want to share the wrong screen. Slideshow. Oh, there it is. Slideshow from the beginning. Awesome. Okay, now I'm ready. Okay, can you all see my screen? Let me know if you can see that. Okay, wonderful. I think we're rocking and rolling. We are good to go. Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is the How to Create an Extraordinary Life and Love After a Divorce 3-day workshop. So for those of you who didn't know, this is going to be 3 days, Tuesday, tomorrow, and Thursday, all at 7 p.m. Central Time. So whatever that time is in your time zone. And we're just these are the topics we're going to cover. If you saw the emails, I already, kind of put all that out there. We're going to talk about how to achieve any goal tonight. We're going to talk about how to change old patterns and habits forever tomorrow. And then on Thursday, Essential steps for dating after a divorce, my favorite topic of them all. But tonight we are diving into how to achieve any goal, no matter how many times you have failed before. And I wanted to really just highlight that how many times you failed before, because I recognize that as humans, we tend to bring our past with us. We bring like all those failures and we decide what's possible in our future based on our past. Okay. And we're going to talk about that tonight. And if you have any questions about that, I really want to hone in on that today. All right. So what tonight is going to look like, I'm going to teach on how to achieve any goal. I'm going to briefly tell you how to work with me. And the only reason I'm going to have on Thursday, I will really dive deep into my programs and what they are. But I do want to mention it today, just because I know there are some people who can only join today and might have questions around how to work with me. It's going to be very brief, just a couple of minutes to let everyone know where you can go get more information about how to work with me. And then we'll do Q&A and coaching. We will be on here for an hour to an hour and a half max. So just so you have an idea what's coming. All right, let's start with my story. So some of you have been in my world for years. Some of you are clients. And I see some of the names here. I know you are my current clients and you're joining this. So welcome. For those of you who are new to my world, my name is Sade Curry. So the S is pronounced with an SH. It's Sade, like the singer, the British singer who sang Smooth Operator. If you've ever heard that song, my name is pronounced just like hers. I am a relationship coach for divorced women. So I coach women on divorce, on dating, and on their remarriage afterwards. Like the core of my clientele are women who are dating after a divorce. So that's like the biggest chunk of my clientele. But a lot of women also come to me for like their divorce or recovery after divorce, or just certain goals that they want to achieve after their divorce. And I got into this because of my own divorce. So I got divorced after 17 years. I left my now ex-husband in 2015, and that just started the whole process of the divorce. It was a very toxic marriage. I know many of you know the deal. So we have a call in my program that's an emotional recovery call where we talk about just recovering from all of that. It's a journey to recover from a toxic marriage, like therapy. I've done coaching. I've done support groups. I have read all the books. I've watched all the YouTube videos, all the things. Like at this point, I am now close to 8 years in my recovery journey. And all of that time has been spent like really doing the work. So, if that's something you want to ask about, we can talk about that as well in the Q&A section, but that's not really the topic today. At the time of the divorce, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had been a stay-at-home mom for over 8 years at that point. So I had not worked in the corporate world at that point for over 8 years. During that period, now this is my story, so I will caveat it. People always say that we have a story. So I'm going to let you know, I have my own stories too. I'm a coach, but I'm also a human. And my story is that my ex sabotaged a lot of my dreams and ideas. Now, of course, I have a responsibility in that. So that's why I call it a story. But I wanted to say that to illustrate kind of some of the things you might be thinking about after your divorce that might be in your way. I remember a lot of those years, I had journals and I would write these ideas and I'd have these great ideas for a book or a workshop that I wanted to do or a class that I wanted to do. I wanted to go back to college and go to graduate school, finish my degree, go to graduate school, like things that I wanted to do. And I remember during the 17 years we were married, during the divorce, I had to catalog things for the court case. I reapplied to college over 10 times in those 17 years. It was insane. I was I kept trying to fulfill my dreams. I kept trying to achieve my goals. Now, that container of that toxic marriage made it really hard to do that. And so I came out of that marriage with a lot of dreams, a lot of goals, a lot of ideas that had just gone unfulfilled, right? And so some of you might have experienced that as well. In the process of the divorce, I lost the marital home. He got to keep the marital home. He got to keep all the money, so I hadn't worked in a long time. My ex had access to the resources. I didn't have access to them. So pretty much I started from scratch. Like after my divorce, I did have some resources. I had my education and I got some child support. So I wasn't at zero, but compared to where I was before, it felt like zero. It did not feel good. And I threw myself into starting over and learning how to start over and learning how to build everything I wanted. And I remember one of the things I determined was that I was going to step into the world as the person I was always meant to be. Because I initially had some thoughts around like, oh my God, I wasted all these 17 years. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to recapture those 17 years. I'm going to act like those 17 years didn't happen and create a life that looks like those 17 years didn't happen. And so that was kind of like my mindset going into creating my goals. One of the things I did early then is I wrote 100 goals, things that I wanted in my life. Some of them have happened, some of them haven't happened yet, but I really set out on that journey and I tried different things. Between that time and now, I have gone back into the workforce. So I went back to the workforce I tried a couple of like little businesses. So I tried network marketing. I did a lot of things. I just did a lot of things to say like to move myself forward. There was a period where I was nannying for several months. I did network marketing. I know some of you who have been my friends for a long time. If you go into my Facebook DMs, you'll see where I DM'd you with my Beachbody stuff. Like I did all the things. But as I grew and researched and got coached, I learned the skills that I really needed to move myself forward. And within, I would say about 2 years, I had gotten the job that I wanted with the exact paycheck that I wanted. So when I was doing my network marketing, I'll tell you this little anecdote. We did a lot of like vision boards and things like that. So my line leader said, okay, create a vision board and how much you want. And I remember writing down that I wanted to earn, I think at that time it was like, I wanted to earn $1,400 a week, which was huge for network marketing. But then they told you could do it and all that. I did not make any money from network marketing. Not to knock it, it just didn't work for me, right? But I still had that like check in my vision board. And when I finally got the job that I wanted about 1.5 years or 2 years later, my weekly paycheck was exactly that amount. Like it was insane. And so when I went back to work, I started working with KPMG, which is an accounting firm, and they pay really well. I was making over 6 figures, and that was my paycheck after taxes. So that was like the path that I was on. And I realized that this path of setting your goals and learning how to achieve goals, I could use it with anything. I started doing it with everything. I started applying it to travel. I applied it to meeting my husband. I applied it to starting my business. So I have done this process over and over and have refined it and have learned more from others and I have now taught it to my own clients. And I continue to use it. I have new goals. I have goals for this year. I had goals for my relationship with my children, which I wanted to heal and change because we just had so much dysfunction going on. And I have applied that over and over again. And so I am full of conviction that I can teach this to anyone and that anyone can do it. It just requires a change in thinking. But we'll get to that in a second. So that is kind of like where I am coming from. And now I just want to share pieces of that path with you that you can take today and start to use to create your own goals. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is start with compassion and connection. My ladies who come into my world, divorced women who want to work with me, are typically type A or type A tendency, right? Which is not necessarily like hard as nails. It just means like you are resourceful and you're a survivor and you're a high achiever and you want to do things. And sometimes we overfunction or we overachieve at the expense of our own hearts, at the expense of compassion and connection. And so that's where I want us to start, because when I teach you all of the steps work, but they don't work without compassion and connection. They don't work without that relationship with yourself that is loving. So We're going to start with you, just like if you feel comfortable, just putting your hands over your heart or closing your eyes, whatever works for you, to just take a moment to connect with yourself. And I want us to let go of just past failure, because we often drag that into achieving goals. We look to the past to determine what we're able to do in the future. We have regrets for mistakes we made in the past, ways we think we did it wrong, ways we think we didn't do it right, things we wish we had done differently. And I want you to just kind of sit with yourself and be like, yeah, girl, that's fine. You're okay, right? Like, we're here now. And I know we can't go into like a whole lot of forgiveness work, but that is part of the work, is to acknowledge that you're human and just give yourself grace. So that's like, we can just use that as like the highlight. Just give yourself grace for the goal that you're going to want to think about tonight that isn't achieved yet. Like, it's okay that it's not achieved yet. That's fine. This is the journey. And everything that has happened has brought you to this moment. And that's okay. In my coaching, I always want to return to compassion, because sometimes we want to achieve this. We want to get money, or we want to change jobs, or we want to, whatever it is, or find a partner to prove to ourselves that we're okay, to prove that we're acceptable. But it's backward. We accept ourselves as the foundation for achieving every goal. All right. That is the beginning. That's step one. I don't really have it in steps, but if you were to take step one, this is step one. And sometimes this step one can be a week or a month or 2 months of work. When I was working on just healing my relationship with money and how money showed up in my life and how I spent money and all of that, I wrote all of the mistakes that I felt I had made with money, like throughout my life. And I just kind of sat with it and gave myself compassion and connection. And then once that burden was like gone, then I was able to like sit with all the good things I had done with money. Because the truth is, you have done 10 things right for every one thing you think you've done wrong. And if you take the time to find the evidence for that, you will find that that's true. The reason we're always focused on the mistakes that we've made or things that have gone wrong is that that's the way the human brain is designed. Like, that is the way our brain is designed to work. So our brain is designed for an environment that's different from the environment we live in. Our brain was designed for like caveman days, right? Where there was saber-toothed tigers. One wrong move, if you ate the wrong berries, if you put your hand in the wrong hole, any mistake meant death. So, thousands of years ago, making a mistake meant you died. You didn't get a do-over. There was no hospital where you could get the antidote for a snake bite. If you stepped on the snake's head, it was death. And we've had so many technological advancements, agricultural advancements, that in the last, couple of thousand years, and for sure in the last 200 years, we have advanced more in the last 200 years technologically than probably the 4,000 years before that. And there's no way that our biology can keep up. The biology of your brain, our responses, the fight or flight responses, they cannot keep up with the world we're living in. So your brain is still designed to find all the problems as a way of keeping you safe, to focus on problems, to focus on failure so that you don't repeat it, to focus on where you have scarcity, to focus on someone who might harm you. And that's why it does that. It's not because you're wrong. It's just because that's the way the brain is designed. And so part of coaching and learning and growing is the skill of deliberately taking your mind to the 10 things that are going right. Because your brain will by default focus on the one thing that's going wrong. And this is work that I have to do every day. Even currently, I've learned it. I teach it. I've helped people through it. I still have to do it every day. Because if I don't watch my brain, it's just going to go to where it doesn't need to go. Now, of course, over time, it's easier for me to move into where my brain needs to be and what I need to think about, but that has come from practice. So when it comes to failure and the past and the goals you haven't achieved, just know that for every goal you have not achieved, you have achieved 10 successfully. But your brain doesn't think about that. Your brain doesn't think about the fact that you successfully finished grade school, possibly finished high school. You maybe finished college, your graduate degree. You were successful at some tasks at your work job today. You successfully got on this Zoom call. Your brain did not celebrate that. Did not give you any kudos for that at all. So can you see how you are succeeding every day, but your brain is not designed to connect with your success. It's only designed to connect with your failure. And this is why we do the work of compassion. We do the work of connection. We do the work of celebration to create the emotional fuel that helps you achieve your goals. So if this has been missing from your practice, just know this might be one of the reasons achieving goals may have felt heavy, may have felt hard. You might have stumbled over and over because you burned out on thinking about failure and where things were going wrong. All right. So now I want to hear your goals. At the bottom of the screen, there is a chat box, and I think it's enabled. Let's talk about what your individual goals are. Like just for, if you have a goal that you said, I'm going to think about this goal on this call, just put it in the chat. Like what goals do you have? Do you want to change jobs? Do you want to stop overeating or stop over drinking? Do you want to become healthy? Do you have health goals? Do you want to change certain relationships? Do you want to make more money, make a career leap, write a book? I think all of us probably want to write books. Many, many people want to write books. I know I want to write one. Do you want to start a movement, declutter your home? Whatever it is, I want you in this moment to own it. Like, I want this. Don't edit based on what you think is possible. Don't edit based on what the committee in your head says, or what society says, or what your mother says, right? Or what your friends might think of you owning that goal, of you declaring that goal. Like, just, say it. Meg says, I'd love to build my business, double my income this year. Yes, that's one of my goals this year. I want to double my income from last year this year. Vanessa says, find a life partner, work less, make more money. Yes to the money. Jenny, find the right healthy relationship. Yes. Debbie, complete requirements to become LSCSW. I think that's social work. Yes, we need those. I have kiddos who have worked with social workers in the system. And yes, we need more amazing social workers. Meg wants to have a child. Ali wants to make 100K in her business and buy a Tesla. Yes. Teresilla wants to start singing lessons and singing a musical. Oh my God, I love that. Ali wants to build authentic friendships and connections. Yes. Cheryl wants to be healthier. Jennifer wants to make more money and change jobs. Find a nice man. Yes. Oh, these are amazing goals. These are like all my goals. Like, I have all the same goals, y'all. All the same goals. Change jobs, find the right partner, build my business. Deepa wants to connect with a loving, supportive partner, getting and staying organized. Oh my gosh. So Deepa, you and I are like on the same wavelength. I currently have an organization coach. I hired her last year, and she's helping me with my decluttering and organizing. And I am right in the middle of that with you. Being more loving and compassionate. Yes. End fears about dating. Lose 50 pounds by July. Start a dance and tambourine ministry. Mary, I love that. And buy a purple car. Yes. Tanika, break a generational curse. Find a life partner. Live my best whole life. Yes. I love this. I love this so, so much. We want to reconnect with our dreams. Here's the thing. Many women, did I say many women? All women are socialized. It's just part of society. Most societies, we are socialized and we are conditioned and, I guess, trained to be of service. Like women are valued for like how much we serve, like having children, helping men, being in helping services, making sure other people achieve their dreams. And that's just where we're socialized. It's not like a malicious, I guess, agenda. That's just being the human agenda, right? And so we're just raised that way to be facilitators of other people's dreams. And in order for you to fulfill your own dream or your own goals, you have to become comfortable and give yourself permission to take it seriously, to see your goal and your dream and your future as just as important as your children's, just as important as your best friends. Because it's so easy for us to tell our best friends, yes, girl, you got that, go get it. And then when it comes to ourselves, we don't give ourselves that same response. It's because of the way we're socialized. We're socialized to look outward and help people outside of ourselves. But now, changing that is to give yourself permission to take it seriously, even if others don't see it as being serious or don't take it seriously or don't agree that it's serious. And then finally, don't worry about how to achieve it. If you think about how to achieve your goal at the same time as you are setting your goal, you will edit it down to what you think is possible right in this moment. And the challenge with setting a goal and leaning into the possibility is that you won't, if the goal is the right size, it's the right size if you can't quite see how you would do it. That's when it's big enough. Not that, like, I wouldn't set a goal personally now of making $100 million because my brain would just be like, yeah, sure. And he wouldn't even engage with it. So you don't want it to be so big that you don't engage with it, but you don't want it to be so small that you can go out and get it like you can buy chips at Walmart. You want it to be something that stretches you. And the way you do that is to set it big enough that you can't quite see how you would achieve it. If you can see how you can achieve it, then it's not really a goal. It's more like a process. It's more like, okay, here's how we bake a cake. We know all the steps and we can bake a cake, and it's not something that stretches you. And probably it won't be something that motivates you. So all of these little things that I say along the way, you will find that I will say a lot about the way you think about your goal, because to succeed at your goal, you have to look at things differently. The reason you haven't achieved that goal up until now is not because there's anything wrong with you. It's because you don't have the thinking that matches that goal. The only difference between you and the person who has achieved it is thinking. Thinking differently makes you feel different, and it motivates you to do things differently. When you think differently, you actually see the world differently. And this is proven all over and over and over again. So I'll give you an example that I think is common to most of us. When you bought a car, the day before you bought the car, you did not see that particular make and model anywhere. The minute you bought that car and drove it off the lot, guess what you started seeing everywhere? Your make, model, color of your car. Where were all of the other cars before that day? They were always there. But because your brain wasn't primed to find it, you just didn't see them. And so your ability to shift into thinking that opens up possibility is key, even if you don't know yet. And this is what a lot of what I teach in coaching is teaching my clients how to shift their brain into possibility, how to shift their thoughts into possibility. Not because there was anything wrong with how they were thinking before, but because they need new thinking to create something they haven't created before. I'll give an example of one of my clients who got her dream job last year. So she had hired me. I was her general life coach. So we were working on everything. We worked on her anxiety. We worked on her. She was doing a master's degree at the time. So we worked on like her productivity. We also worked on her dating. So it was like all of this together in one. And her goal of getting her dream job with a particular company, it actually wasn't on our radar for last year. It was something that she was going to do. She was going to get a job, but it was like, okay, what's your 3-year? I think we created like a 3-year track for her to get a dream job with that particular company. And so we had the plan out, we had it all planned out, and we were working towards it. Well, what happened was, I think about a month or two after she finished her master's degree, she was doing a lot of dating and traveling. Someone moved into her apartment building. I think, I don't know I don't remember if she knew the lady before or if she met the lady at the apartment building, but she connected with someone in her apartment building who worked for her dream company. Like, wait. And this is where serendipity, God, magic, all of it just happens when you are on the path. She had it written down as a goal, but she wasn't planning on getting that. And then this person moves in and says, oh, you work for that? Yeah, I want to work for them someday. She's like, oh yeah, you have all the credentials to work with them. Here's the process. Like, this is how you apply. And this is like, they probably would hire you. And literally she put in the application. We had to coach a couple of weeks on the anxiety. She had a lot of anxiety about it. We coached her. She put in her application, got called in for an interview. We coached on how to show up at the interview, second, third interview, got hired. And then I think one of the things I asked her was, how much are they offering you? And she told me, and I was like, you know what, why don't we ask for like 20K more? Like, let's just see. And they gave her, I think it was about either 15 or 20K more. And so 2 years early, she got her dream job, 20K more than she anticipated, not because like she worked hard and hustled, but because she allowed herself to think it was possible. That was all that happened. Now, some of what happens in situations like this that could have happened if she wasn't engaged with her goal is that if she hadn't put down that goal, she may never have had that conversation with that friend. Even if the friend had said, hey, this is the company I work for, she may never have asked the question about how to apply. Because when it's not, like if you don't see the possibility, you won't take the very next step was for her to ask how to apply. And even if the opportunity is right in front of you, your brain won't see it. Your brain will not engage with it. So it's important that we do goals, that we dream, and that we let ourselves engage with our dreams. Everything you currently have, if you look around you, in your home, in your body, in your life, everything you have, everything you have created or achieved has been because of a pattern of thinking. If your home is perfectly neat and everything is in its place, mine isn't quite like that. It's because you have a pattern of thinking that's different from mine. And one of the things I'm learning with my coach is how to think like someone who keeps the home spotless and everything in their place at all times. Like I can do it like at the end of the day. I just want to do it as I go. Right? So I'm learning to think like the person who puts everything back immediately. Our patterns of thinking have created everything that we have. And that's not a bad thing. Don't use that against yourself. Don't like start to say, well, this bad thing happened. That's because of my thinking. That's not true. That's not like you created that. Now, you might have moved to that city because of a pattern of thinking, or you may have married that person because of a pattern of thinking, but you are not responsible for bad things that other people do. So when I think about my first marriage, my pattern of thinking led me to create that marriage and to agree to that marriage. But I'm not responsible. My thinking did not create my ex-husband's behavior. So I just wanted to double check that. This is not something that creates blame. The idea here is to let you, empower you to see the connection between your thoughts and what you have. Like I have this book here on my desk. It's a curriculum from a coaching class that I took, right? And I created, in a sense, I created this book being in my home because when that coach posted on social media that she was doing that class, I was like, oh, I would love that class. I had the thought, I would love that class. And I sent her a message and said, I would love to take your class. And so that thought, I would love that class, led me into that class and into me having this book right here on my desk. Now, I could have looked at that post and said, ooh, that's probably too expensive. And that thought would have led me to not send her a message. And that is the simple relationship between how our thoughts create a snowball that leads to everything in our lives. So I'll give you an example with money. the next slide. Money is one of the things that creating money always seems to be like a mystery. Like, how do you get more money? How do people get rich? Like, rich people have secrets, and it's a rigged, system. And some parts of the system are rigged. Okay, so I'm just going to say that. Some parts of the system are rigged, but the system can be rigged, and you as an individual can create a different experience for yourself, right? Like when you look at the wage gap with women of color, while that wage gap exists, Oprah Winfrey has somehow created like $1 billion plus. Like, I don't know how many billions she has now. So the system can be rigged, or there can be problems in the system, and you can still create your own journey. You can still set your own goals and move towards them in a way that even if the system is like not necessarily like set up for your success, you can set yourself up, right? And that's what we're talking about. So money is one of those things. Like, money is created, people who have more money create it based on how they think about money differently. And this is one of the thoughts that's different. I did not know this. Like, prior to like my own journey and getting coached and learning about business, I didn't know that money was created based on value. Like, I didn't, like, it just never connected in my mind. Now I know it so well, but money, you get money for creating value, right? For creating value, putting your value in front of the right people, and being willing to be paid for your value. Every job is because you have value that you've created that's valuable to the employer. You put it in front of the right employer, and you are open to being paid. You don't raise your hand and say, okay, I'm going to volunteer for Google. You tell Google to pay you. And I never made that connection around money. So I just thought money was like something that someone favored you. If you could just get favor with the right person, then you got the job and then you got paid. But I've learned that, so when richer people, whatever on the spectrum, when they're thinking about money, the reason they're able to make a lot more money is that they see the connection between the value they create and the money that they want. And so you won't see a billionaire taking a job because they're like, well, that's valuable and I can give that value, but it's not going to help me create the money that I want. And so this is an example of like a different way to think about money. And that thought will create a different set of results. And so now, especially as a business person, when I am offering my programs, I think about the value. I'm like, okay, how do I give value in the world so that I can, and how do I publish it to the right people? And how do I stay open to be paid for my value? And so I want you to think about that for those of you that have money goals. What is the value that you currently have? What is the value you can create? Every time you get to do a new course or learn a new skill or, get a degree, you are increasing the amount of value you are creating in the world. Then ask yourself, am I publishing my value to the right person? Am I applying to the right companies? Or am I, if your current job isn't paying you what you want, it might not be that there's a problem with you. It just might be you haven't published your value to the right person, the people who will pay you for what you have. And I'll give another client example. I worked with this client a couple of years ago, and she had just come to me for anxiety. So she was anxious and just wanted to like kind of get all that out. Well, come to find out, a lot of the anxiety was because she was in this really toxic work environment. Like a toxic work environment. Like it was just, she was being overworked. It was horrible, but she didn't realize that. If anything, she was thinking that, I'm so grateful that I got to work for this company, because at the time that she got the job, she was sort of in a vulnerable place. She hadn't worked for 2 years. And so she felt like she didn't have enough value to go back to the level. Her father had been ill, so she traveled to take care of him. And when she came back, she was like, well, she just didn't feel the confidence to apply right back where she left off. So she took this lower job and was grateful for it. But what had happened was she had taken her value and published it to the wrong person who wasn't willing to pay her enough. And they were overworking her at the right time. And her story ends with her quitting her job At the end, we worked on the anxiety and everything, but in the end, she quit her job and started two businesses. She started a real estate business and she started her own import and export business. And what was interesting was she was still thinking about going back to work at some point because she didn't think her businesses would like take off immediately. But again, she was on, and this story is on my podcast, I believe. She took her dream trip to Paris, one of the things we had coached on. On that trip, she was on the plane in business class, sat beside this guy who wanted to source food from her country of origin. Again, serendipity starts to happen when you are in that flow, when you are on that path. And so she could never have imagined that that's how her second business would start. But when she got on the path of owning the goal and agreeing with it and giving herself permission to explore it, you start to see all the opportunities in the world. That's the same way my coaching business has started. Like, it's just saying yes. You basically raise your hand and say yes to the goal. Right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to start a coaching business. I'm going to make more money. Like, you just raise your hand and say yes. That's it. Like, just yes to my goal. I'm saying yes to my goal. Okay. So I want you, like, all of you to just like sit with that right now, with the goal that you typed up or you wrote in your journal. And so I'm just going to say yes to it, because all you have to do is say yes and change your thinking. And change your thinking. And sometimes changing your thinking is a process. So I will say, this is why I have a job as a coach, is that sometimes we have to go back over and over and change the thinking. But saying yes is that first step. Okay. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of the big thinking, of how you need to think. And I think I've sort of covered this, but I'm just going to lay it out a little bit. What keeps us from achieving our goals? Distorted thinking. A lot of us have a ton of limiting beliefs. We believe that we're not good enough. We're too old. People like us can't achieve it. It's pie in the sky. I won't be liked. This is a big one. People won't like me if I'm too successful. People will be intimidated by me if I'm too successful. Thoughts like, who am I to do this? Like, some of these thoughts are like just sitting in your gut, sitting in your subconscious. And so it's distorted thinking, or even just the basic fallacies like confirmation bias. Like, if you have a self-fulfilling prophecy running, like, oh, it never works out for me. And you go into the world with that distorted thinking, and then it never works out because you're not on the path. You didn't raise your hand. And so there's no serendipity. Nothing happens. When we have distorted thinking, it creates emotional disconnection. It creates negative feelings in our bodies. So we're disconnected from ourselves. We're disconnected from joy and freedom and abundance and support. Like, we don't support ourselves, and we have a hard time receiving support from other people to move us forward. So the distorted thinking, and again, if you have any of these limiting beliefs, it is not your fault. Like, we are programmed with that stuff. Society programs us with that every day. Like, every day, look on TV, look at the news, look at what your mom says, look at what your friends say, everyone who's complaining about everything, all the talk about the recession. One of the things I was like, listen, I don't care what anybody says about the recession. I am going to make way more money in 2023 than I made in 2022. Like, I've just decided. That's my thought about the recession. I'm like, not participating in the recession. Thank you very much. Because that thinking is programming us. And it might be true that there is technically a recession. But guess what? People are still buying cars. They are buying homes. They are buying yachts. A whole bunch of my friends just went to Cabo, Mexico for this awesome retreat. I went in 2021. They didn't do it in Cabo last year. And this year, it just wasn't feasible family-wise for me to go. Like, they have pictures on social media with all of them on a yacht, and like, in a recession. So just because there's a recession doesn't mean you don't get to achieve your goal. And that's all distorted thinking, that just because this is happening here means this. It's not always a one-to-one correlation between one piece of news and what's possible for you. So we're talking about the distorted thinking, the emotional disconnection, and then we also have distractions. These three are all connected, right? Our distractions they become distractions because of the way we think about them. So distractions like circumstances. I have a full-time job. That means I can't start my business, right? So the circumstance is true that you have a full-time job, but the distorted thinking turns it into a distraction. Because it is possible to start a business with a full-time job. Just depends on the business, depends on the time. Like I started my coaching business while working full-time. I just woke up at 6 a.m. and I coached my UK clients at 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. in the morning. And then I went to work and then I came home and then I coached my US clients in the evening and on the weekends. And it was like not a problem. So we also have distractions in people because as humans, again, this goes back to how we are wired. We are wired for connection with the people that we love and that we care about. Part of that wiring in caveman days kept us safe because if you kept your connection with your tribe, then your tribe would protect you. If the lion came, they would share their food with you, all of that. But now that wiring has turned into a situation where we want to please people at the expense of our goals in situations where we no longer need them to keep us safe. So an example is, pretty sure everyone on this call is an adult and probably midlife. Most of the women who want to work with me are like in their 40s and above. So you no longer need your mother's love and care to get fed. Now, of course, when you were a little child, you needed her to like approve of you so she would keep you alive. That's what your like little lower brain was thinking. I better be nice to this woman or I might not get food. You know, even if your mother was loving, like that's just the way the brain is wired. But at 40, you can get your own food. But guess what? Many of us are still looking for our parents' approval. We still want them to approve of all of our decisions. We still don't want to have any dreams that are intimidating to our parents. So like all the stories. So people also become distractions. Friends is our big one, especially for women. Women, we move in packs. And in order for the pack to stay together, we all kind of have to stay at the same level. And so we water down our goals so that our friends won't be upset. One of my clients she's 63, she met her partner last October, is wildly in love. I'm hoping to share her story on Thursday. When she hired me as her dating coach, her friends were like, that's crazy. Why would you hire a dating coach? That's insane. And now it's like she's with this great guy. He's 65, he's 6'2", full head of hair, skinny. It's like, whoa, wow. And her friends are like, okay, maybe this is not a bad idea. But guess what? She went ahead, even though her friend disapproved of her. And she felt very hurt because she told me about it. We coached on it. You know, it hurt her feelings that her friend said that. But imagine if she hadn't done it just because her friend disapproved of it. She wouldn't have gotten her goal. And then the other thing we use to distract ourselves is how we think about ourselves. Sometimes we blame ourselves for our own problems and we beat ourselves up. And we think that the way we are is wrong or the way we show up is wrong. All of that is distorted thinking that turns who you are into a problem, into a distraction. We spend so much time thinking of ourselves as a problem that we don't we could apply that energy to actually just getting our goal. Sometimes we spend so much time trying to fix ourselves. But the problem with fixing yourself is that if you believe you're broken, you will always believe you're broken and you will always be fixing yourself. So it's like a never ending cycle. So the opposite is what's been missing from your goals. If you have goals that you haven't achieved, it's because you didn't have empowered thinking that fueled emotional balance. And I put dopamine in brackets just because there is a body component to this where, especially if you experience trauma in your childhood or in your first marriage, there is a tendency for those of us who have experienced trauma to not produce enough of the good chemicals. Like we've just been in chronic stress for so many years that we don't produce enough. And so that is like a side note that I want to make that might need its own type of attention. But outside of, your somatic just means body, your body work, whatever you're doing to heal your body. Outside of that, your empowered thinking flows down and creates emotional balance. Because when you think compassionate thoughts about yourself, you feel better. when you think possibility thoughts about your goals, you feel better. And all of that fuel helps you create focused, connected, and massive action. Like you're able to, you have the energy. You're not exhausted from overthinking. You're not exhausted from, grieving. You're not exhausted from like beating yourself up. You have the energy to put into your goal. So that's in a nutshell what's been missing. If you feel like you failed, or this is why, it's not you. We just weren't taught this stuff in high school. All right, so here are the steps. If you love and resonate with the Dating After Divorce podcast and are ready to stop wasting time and find a partner who matches you now, then working with me is your next right move. It's time to intentionally create success in your romantic life the way you do in other areas of your life. Now is the time to open your heart and life to real love. When you work with me, I help you date regularly and consistently, and ultimately you enter a healthy and committed relationship, partnership, or marriage. My Good Men Only dating process helps you gain clarity on who you're looking for, where to find your person, and you'll make real progress with meeting them. I help you attract the kind of man you want to build a life with. And you'll enjoy the dating process because you'll spend time with men whose company you actually enjoy instead of kissing 100 frogs. My coaching process includes setting up your dating profile, your online dating process so that you level up the types of men you're meeting until you hit the right match. I work with you on offline dating, how to connect with men in the real world, evaluating correctly for compatibility on multiple levels, finding the right balance between remaining open but not getting attached too quickly, retraining your intuition so that you can trust yourself and your instincts, and finding out the truth about the people you're dating without becoming an FBI agent. And when you finally go exclusive, you'll know the questions and conversations you need to have so you won't spend what should be your romantic honeymoon season overthinking and wondering if you're missing something about him. Attracting a whole different kind of relationship than you've experienced before is truly possible and available for you. I have 3 levels of coaching programs available to choose from. So if you want to learn more about doing this deep dive dating work that creates healthy, loving relationships after divorce, take 2 minutes to schedule a consultation call with me at shadecurry.com/schedule-appointment. That's SADECurry.com/schedule-appointment. Or you can just tap on the link in the show notes to schedule that call. I'll talk to you soon. To achieving any goal. And we've been going through them as I've talked. Dream big, right? Just let yourself go, let yourself write down your goals and dream big. We have to change the distorted thinking. Like we have got to go in there and find out, what is it that you believe about yourself, about the world, about your goal that keeps you from engaging with it in a powerful way? And here's the other thing I will say. Everyone has this. The people who succeed are the ones who are able to figure out how to change their thinking. Now, some people get lucky and their kids and their parents give them everything they need and give them all the thinking. Great. For the rest of us, we got to work on it a little bit. But we all have gifts. We all have gifts of thinking. So I think in my family of origin, just going to college was like a given. So I was just given thoughts about going to college that made it automatic that I went to college. Some other people grow up in homes where going to college is not a given, and they have to work at developing the belief that they can go to college. Many of them end up being like the first in their family to go to college, but it's all thinking. That's it. It's just a difference in thinking. And all of us have been gifted some positive thinking gifts from our families of origin, from our experiences. And then you have the other areas where you need to work or get coaching. Then next, you got to heal your emotions. It is connected to thinking. But if you've experienced trauma, you might be carrying some pain, some regret, some grief, some heartbreak. You might be carrying some anger. You might be carrying some self-pity, because sometimes we got a little victim consciousness going on. All of that needs to be healed. It needs to be brought out to the surface and healed. And the reason I love doing this healing work in conjunction with a goal is that it takes it out of the realm of this never-ending fixing, like I'm just healing forever, and then when I'm healed I will be perfect and then I will achieve my goals. No, it sort of like creates a small project that you can use to heal some of it. So when I was looking for a job and going back into the workplace, that healed some of my own confidence, because I had to face my learned helplessness, which is just a feeling like I can't do anything. I had to face my anxiety. I had to face my, I had like a lot of thoughts about authority because I came from a very conservative, patriarchal culture, religious culture. So I had a lot of thoughts about like, I didn't want to get in trouble, right? And that was not helpful to me. So I had to, but taking me from not having a job to having the job of my dreams helped me heal those specific things. Then when it came to finding my partner, dating and meeting my husband, I had to heal my emotional imprint that caused me to be attracted to toxic people. I had to work on that. I had to heal my feelings of abandonment. I had to heal my own ability to be in an intimate, healthy relationship. Like all of that came up in that one project. So instead of me just trying to heal everything in like this vacuum, having goals helped me heal myself like over time. Then as you do all of that, part of the work is taking massive action. And I don't think I didn't create a slide for this, but I'm going to share it. And I hope I explain it adequately without a slide. So here is, I think, a key that you might not have known about taking massive action. People feel like, oh, taking massive action is like doing a lot of something. Like I will apply to 100 jobs to get a job. And that is kind of like massive action. But here's a little trick that I use in massive action to guarantee that I will achieve my goal. Instead of having one plan of massive action, I create like 20. And it's not that they're not linear. It's not, okay, I will get my resume together and then I will go on LinkedIn and then I will apply to 100 jobs. It's not, all of that is just one line item. Fixing my resume, all of that is one line item that by itself could help me achieve my goal. Then I go to number two. Number two is I will contact everyone in my phone. And I'm not saying do this, like for your job, it might be a different set of massive actions. So number two is if I contact everyone in my phone and tell them I'm looking for a job, that by itself could get me a job. And then number three, I don't know, is whatever, a different plan that by itself could get me a job. And I write as many of those as I can think of. And that does two things. One, it gives me a plan. It gives me multiple paths to achieving my goal, which helps my confidence and my belief that I will achieve my goal. And then two, it really gives me the opportunity to take massive action, not just one time, but over and over and over again, and experiment with different ways of achieving my goal. And whenever I take massive action in that way, I always get my goal. So when I was dating, I wasn't just on one app, I was on multiple apps. And I didn't just date on apps. I dated in person and I went to I was like, okay, here are all the plans. I'm going to work all the plans. And of course, you can't always work all the plans at the same time. But I was like, one of these has got to work. So that's just a little tip on massive action. It's just something that I tried to think, like, where did I learn that? I don't remember learning that anywhere. So if you see it somewhere, let me know. Like, I don't remember learning that anywhere. That was just like my own take on massive action, was multiple plans and a plan to do all of them. Now, here's another thing about massive action. If your thinking hasn't changed and your emotions aren't balanced, you will burn out on massive action. So if you're taking massive action and it feels stressful, we got to go back and fix the fuel, and that's in the engine. The next thing you have to learn to do is how to invest time versus using time. We are taught to use time like we are taught to spend money. It's like, hey, you get 24 hours in a day and you're going to use it up. So what are you going to use your 24 hours on? I teach my clients to invest their 24 hours. so that it yields returns versus getting spent. So it's the difference between taking $100 and going to Walmart and spending it on stuff that's consumable and then it's gone, and taking that $100 and putting it into the stock market for the next 20 years. In order to achieve massive goals over and over and over again, you have to learn how to take your time and start saying, okay, I'm going to spend this portion of it, I just got to spend. But I'm going to take a certain amount of my time and invest in things that get me more time. You got to get off the bicycle, go over to the car rental company, rent a car. That might take you an hour and a half to do that. And everyone else is whizzing past you on their bicycle. But if you don't take that hour and a half to go to the rental company to get a car, like, you're going to be just as slow as everybody else. And you have to be willing to invest that hour and a half in order to build a machine that takes you faster. And so then there are many ways to do that in your life, depending on what your goal is. We invest time, we don't use it. And then finally, rest and renewal, especially if you're divorced, if you've had trauma, if you have children, like if you have all the things, if you've ever experienced overwhelm or exhaustion or fatigue, we have to learn the art of rest and renewal. Part of why our marriages were so horrible was because there was no room for us to rest and renew. We were always on the go, protecting the children, walking on eggshells, trying to make sure everything over functioning because some of our exes just wouldn't do their part. And in this second half of life, we have to learn the art of rest and renewal. And when you get to that part, you realize, oh my God, I have to learn this. I don't even know how to play. I don't feel comfortable sitting on the couch and just relaxing because your brain sometimes will be going and telling you, you got to do this, you got to do that. All right, so here are the steps to achieving any goal you want. If you iterate these, you will achieve any goal. The process of engaging with your goal will change you forever. It doesn't matter what the goal is. It doesn't matter what it is. If you sit and choose a goal, just choosing the goal, deciding changes you. Just dreaming, writing 100 goals, that process will change you forever. The process of planning your goal, planning your massive action will change you forever. The process of changing your thinking, the process of looking out into the world for new opportunities for what you want. You are not the same person. Every time you pick a goal and you go for it, you're growing. And so I want to encourage you to think about this in terms of a journey. It's not, oh, when I get this goal, then I'm happy forever. It's like, oh no, I have goals. I will always have goals. I'm constantly engaging with my goals. And therefore I'm constantly growing and changing and becoming the person that I was always meant to be. You know, engage with your extraordinary goals. Make them extraordinary because you're extraordinary. Currently, you are extraordinary. And I know for every one of us here, there's that extraordinary woman that we also want to be. This is the growth path, is saying, I'm going to do things different. I'm going to think differently. I'm going to own my goals. I'm going to engage with them. I'm going to start somewhere. We all start somewhere. Everyone starts somewhere. And don't compare yourself to the person ahead, right? Like, I was listening to a podcast this morning, and this woman is a business coach, and she was talking about how her next goal is to make $30 million in her business, right? And I'm like, okay, well, if I compared myself to her and her journey, I would just go hide in despair. But why would I do that? Like, I love my journey. I'm enjoying my journey. I'm nowhere near her in my money, but like, it's exciting and amazing to engage in that growth and to see myself moving forward. So, and she started, and I know her, she started with nothing as well, which is interesting. Like, if you listen to her whole story, yes, it's Stacey Bayman. Yeah. She said, I didn't have 2 spoons in my 1-bedroom apartment. So everyone is on a journey. So don't compare yourself to anyone. Don't compare yourself to where they are. Your journey is going to be its own amazing, beautiful thing. And it will grow according to how you engage with changing your thinking and doing this work. Okay. So we're going to move into questions. But before we do, I'm just going to take, for those of you who do not want to ask your questions verbally, type them in the chat so we can start, just drop them in there and I'll answer them. For those of you who would like to unmute and tell me your question or get coaching, there is a button at the bottom of your screen where you can raise your hand. For those of you that are on computers, you might have to go to the 3 dots and click on its reactions. So on some of your computers, if you go to reactions, you'll see one that says raise hand. Like I'm doing it now. You should see raise hand on my face, like in my little screen with my face. You can raise your hand and then I'll know that, you want to engage, you want to come on and talk and tell me what's going on or get coaching on your goal. So please start putting your questions in the chat and raising your hand if you want coaching. Doing it early helps me kind of like budget the time. So don't be shy. How do I turn mine off? Okay, hold on. Reactions, lower hand. Okay, so now mine's off. Okay. And then, stop putting your questions in the chat. And then for those of you who are thinking about working with me, and if you don't want to wait until Thursday where I break down the entire program, I am going to put the link in the chat. And guess what? I did not copy the link. Hold on. I got this. I can do this. All right, move that over and find it. All right, for those of you that want to take a look at my program today, go ahead and click on that link and it'll take you to the website, or you just save it and look at it later. But I'm going to break down everything that's in the program in detail on Thursday after the workshop. All right, let us go to questions and coaching. First question. My biggest struggle is getting started, putting myself out there. How do I get past that and then start talking to men? Okay, so for sure, your key is getting started. So there are many different ways to look at that depending on what your thinking is. So what I will ask, Joanna, if you want to put it in the chat, is when you think about getting started, what is your very next step? Like, what is the very next thing you would do to get started? And what's in your way is you are thinking something about that very next step. Either you're not thinking about that very next step or you're thinking about something beyond it. And that's, creating some anxiety or whatever that's keeping you from taking the very next step, or you don't know what the next step is, or you're afraid of the very next step. So my guess, with dating, is putting yourself out there. The very first step is to download an app. If you're planning on dating on an app, right? You could download the app. But potentially you're thinking about all the things that happen after that. And you're using the thoughts about, oh my God, but how do I create a profile? Oh my God, what do I say to the men? And you are creating I think they call it catastrophic thinking. You are scaring yourself with the thoughts about the parts that you haven't gotten to yet. When you think that way, again, I'm guessing because I'm not coaching you live. When you do that, you create anxiety. When you think about wanting to know everything about it, I need to know exactly how it's going to go. I need to know who's going to talk to me. I need to know exactly what they're going to say. I need to know what I'm going to say back to them and all of that before I get started. And when you think that way, it creates anxiety. Anxiety is the fear emotion. Then if you go back to realizing that when your brain is, wired for caveman days, when anxiety comes up, your brain is like, oh, there's a saber-toothed tiger out there. We're going to die. Don't get started. That is the signal that it sends to your brain when it thinks something really bad is going to happen. But the reason it feels like something really bad is going to happen is that you are anticipating beyond your very next step. So what I would suggest is, first of all, become aware of how you are thinking about getting started. Journal, write it all down. Okay, what exactly is the scary part? And when you see what the scary part is, you can choose new thoughts that don't scare you so much about it. And potentially, if talking to men is the scary part, maybe, possibly, what is it about talking to men that is scary? Like, we have to dig into where is the fear coming from? What's causing the anxiety? Resolve that, and then you feel empowered. Once we resolve that, you're going to feel empowered. You're going to feel like, oh, wow, this is great. I can talk to men. And that just depends on what that is. And it's different for different people. Some people are afraid of talking to men because, trust issues, because they were harmed. Some like, I was just in a marriage for like 30 years. I talked to my husband and my girlfriends and my children, and that was it. Like, I'm just out of, I'm rusty. And so then it's not it's a skill thing. Then you just need to get some skills. And there are ways that we can build those skills, right? There are ways that, one of the things that I did when I was dating was I went to co-ed events. I went to networking events so that I was talking to men, not in a dating setting. It's kind of like, okay. And I mean, granted, I did have an advantage. I studied engineering. So like, I had more practice than most women do, but there are ways to get that practice and there are ways to figure that out. All right. Next message. Thank you for the inspiring session. Can you please elaborate tactics on emotional healing? Yeah, that's a big one. So first of all, it would depend on what needs to be healed. It would depend on what's going on. But if I were to talk about just some things off the top of my head in terms of emotional healing, first of all, depending on what it is, the first thing you might need is therapy. Like, it would depend on the level. Depends on where you're at. Like, I recommend therapy. There are some things that therapists do that coaches don't do. Like, they have their unique expertise in healing triggers, healing trauma that is beyond what a coach can do. So that would be the first thing I would say. And I have about half my clients coach with me and are also in therapy. And so there's no conflict between the two. It just depends on what you're working on. Many women who have been in abusive relationships have symptoms of complex PTSD. And complex PTSD, depending on the symptoms, you need therapy for some of them. And then if you also have childhood dysfunction on top of that, some of that is going to be needed. So beyond that, in coaching, a lot of the work that I do with emotional healing is caring for your body. Is literally like just getting back in touch with your body. So figuring out what your trigger responses are. So for instance, like a freeze response, if you tend not to want to do things, like, or you're very scared of doing things, or you're afraid to show up, you're afraid to be visible, things that are very warm are great for just throwing out. Hot showers, hot tub, all those things are just really great for having your body start to feel better overall. Now, the emotional, so there's a lot of somatic techniques. I work with EFT, emotional freedom technique, which is also called tapping, where you tap on your pressure points to release anxiety and to release negative emotion, like when it builds up in your body. That's the body part. Now, the emotions part, the first level is just learning to even name your emotion. Many of us are disconnected from our emotions, can't name the emotion. We just know we feel bad. We just know we feel terrible. So I always help my clients develop an emotional vocabulary, like what is even going on, right? Let's talk about what's happening with you, what you're feeling, naming the emotion, connecting it to triggers and situations. And then we develop a process for them to heal that particular thing. So without having a specific example, abandonment is one that a lot of women in relationships and dating deal with. It's connected to loneliness. It's connected to a sense of not belonging. And I teach my clients to start creating their own sense of belonging. It has to do, we work on their thoughts, how they think about themselves. We work on them generating the emotions that helps them connect with feeling belonging. And then we create situations and opportunities for them to participate where they feel safe, where they belong. So it's like a holistic thing. Okay. Teresilla, you want to unmute and tell me what is up? I think I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you. And then I'll come back to the Q&A in the chat after that. I see one more question in there. I'll do Teresilla, Mary, and then I'll answer whatever is left in the chat. All right, lady, what can I help you with?
Well, I guess I would be one of your, a unique person in the Zoom. I've never been married. I'm 47 and I just never had the courage to do it. But now that I'm getting older, I'm definitely reevaluating what a partner is supposed to be or supposed to look like. I think I stayed away from marriage because of just a very an abusive past that I've been trying to heal from. But you said something very pivotal tonight. It just seems like that when I was in this pattern of fixing myself. So I realized that I have this mentality where I'm always broken.
Yeah.
To get out of that. Because I've just been in this healing process for so long that I don't know how to live my life. And I think I'm just trying to get out of my head of feeling like I'm so different that how is it going to be possible for me to, I guess, find a partner or marry? Because I've never taken that step. I've been a loner for a very long time. And I realized it was a way of protecting myself and to feel a sense of security. So I am definitely starting over in life. But I guess I'm just trying to, just have that hope that what I want can happen.
The thought, the limited belief that I heard you say was that I'm too different.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is like, oh, my situation is so different, it wouldn't be possible for me. And when we have that kind of limiting belief, this is a perfect example, your brain misses how you are the same with so many other women who have met partners at 47.
Okay.
Do you see it?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to change my beliefs about how I was shaped, and I didn't fit into that societal structure. So I've always felt like an outcast. But now I'm trying to, change that. But it's
so the thinking you would have to start with, what you would have to start debunking is the fact that you're too different, that you're so different. Yeah, all of us are different, but are you really as different as you think?
Okay.
So you've been through trauma.
Yes.
Right? A whole bunch of people would probably raise their hand and say, yep, me too. And so in that sense, you're the same as many other people. You stayed away from dating to protect yourself. Half my clients done that. You're 47 and you wish you'd started earlier. Again, every 47 to 50 something year old who has never been married, same experience. So you're different, but you are missing how you are the same with other people who have succeeded.
Okay.
And not seeing how you are the same with other people who have succeeded is keeping you from getting on the journey. Because your brain is so focused on how you're different.
Yes.
It's not that you're not different at all. It's that that's not the only truth. Okay. You have your unique experience, but that's not the only thing that's true. It is also true that you have many of the same characteristics as the women who have dated later in your life and met someone. Now, you may not have that evidence around you, but that's where you have to go and find that evidence so that you can change your belief.
Okay.
Like, who do you know who has met someone after 45 and gotten married?
That's the thing. I don't know anyone.
Yeah. So your brain is programmed with, information that, oh, well, your brain is like, well, I don't see it, so it must not be true. It's confirmation bias. No, that's frequency bias. Like the number of times I see something is what makes that thing true.
Okay.
So your brain is like, well, I don't know anybody, so it believes that doesn't happen. But that's not true. It happens all the time.
Okay.
There are many women who have met. Anne Lamott there's celebrities that have. Anne Lamott got married for the first time at, I don't know, 60. Like, I definitely have a friend who got married at 50. My older sister got married for the first time at 50.
Wow.
Now, I have that evidence, of course, but that evidence exists for you too.
Okay.
And so what you would do to coach your brain and to shift your thinking, this is a tool that you can use, is to go and find the evidence.
Okay.
Like, start asking people, all right, do you know anyone who's gotten married after 47? Because I don't know any. And people will tell you, oh yeah, I had this friend, my aunt this, and you'll start to see it. When you look for it, it's like when you open your brain to see the possibility, your brain will start to look for it in the world. And then you can let go of the belief that you're too different.
Okay. So I really want to have the courage to just go out and explore and not be afraid of something traumatic happening again.
Right. And so then that's another layer. Your brain believes that it's not safe to date.
Yes, exactly.
Again. And so you can see the process of coaching. We just go down all the thoughts one at a time and work on them. So the next thought that comes up is, it's not safe to date. Okay. So there's some things that might not be safe when you're dating. But what your brain is not seeing is that you can learn to keep yourself safe when you're dating. So instead of asking yourself, you know what? I wouldn't knock some martial arts. I'm here for it. I'm here for some martial arts. When your brain believes that it's not safe, it just closes the door. There's no possibility. But you can start to let some light in. Like, how could it be safe for me to date? How could I learn to keep myself safe when I'm dating? What does it look like to date safely? So like, you're asking questions. And as you're asking those questions, you're learning something new and developing like a whole different way of seeing it. And so coaching is not like you just grit your teeth and you go do it. That doesn't help. That is not compassionate and it is not connected.
Thank you for saying that, because I've tried it that way and that does not work.
Right. We got to go down the thoughts. It starts with the thinking and then the emotional part. You know, your thinking is shifting when you start to feel different.
Okay.
When you start to feel different, it's easier for you to do the action of downloading the app or going on a blind date.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So ask yourself, how can I make it safe to date? And just write down all the ideas that come to you. Or ask someone. Like, when you dated, how did you keep yourself safe?
Okay.
And you start to learn that skill, and then you can go for your goal.
Okay. All right. I think I'll apply it the same way approaching a career.
It's the same thing.
Okay. So
all about starting with the possibility that the result is available to you. Once you believe that possibility, then it's like, okay, well, how can I make it happen? And you move towards it. But always check in with your thinking, because your thoughts are going to drive how you feel about it. Okay. All right, let me do the next question, and then Mary will coach you. You're very welcome. All right. How do I overcome the fear of being alone? I'm working on being fully secure, but lean towards hyper-independent and avoidant. I don't feel I can trust men as deeply as I'd like. Can't seem to create emotional connection unless they're very needy and anxiously attached. Okay, this is a great question, Meg. I hope you're still on. So the first thing I want to just point out, and I always have to point this out to my clients, excuse me, when they're dating, is that you don't need to trust men as a whole. Not all men are trustworthy. A whole bunch of them are not trustworthy. Okay. And sometimes we use that against ourselves in the sense that, like, when you don't trust men, we beat ourselves up like, oh my God, now there's something wrong with me for not trusting men. Listen, men are the most dangerous animal to women on the planet. Okay, I'm just going to say it. They are the most, as a group, they are the most dangerous. However, that is not the only thing that is true. What is also true is that there are some men that are trustworthy. There's some men that are not to be trusted, so you don't want to trust those men. And then there are some men that are trustworthy and you want to trust them. And potentially some of the, being hyper independent and avoidant is that your emotions are like, well, I don't know. How do I know when to trust? And that's what's going on inside. And so your brain is like, I'm just going to keep you safe by being avoidant. We're just going to keep everybody out, because the skill of knowing when to trust and when not to trust is missing. Like it's a skill. And I don't want to go into my rant, but we were all born with it. But the way women are socialized, we are socialized to stop listening to the part of our brain that knows who to trust and who not to trust. We get disconnected from our intuition. It's a whole deal. I teach my clients, like, line by line, how to reconnect with their intuition. It's a process, but your brain is trying to keep you safe by keeping you avoidant, because if you're avoidant, then it keeps everybody out and then you're safe. Your brain is not, it's not really after your happiness. It's after your safety. You need to build the self-trust that you know when to trust and when not to trust, because your brain is only creating an emotional connection with men that are needy and anxiously attached. Those are like the men that you're like, oh yeah, I can take this guy. The needy and anxiously attached men, the reason your brain connects with them is because like, if they, like, you could probably beat them up. And so your brain feels safe and it creates a connection. But that's not healthy either. It's not a healthy connection. Very needy and anxiously attached guys are not healthy. We don't want those guys either. But you're creating safety for yourself by avoiding all men unless you're like, yep, I can handle this guy. And so the skill you want to learn, and I know you have 2 questions in there, but I just wanted to do the skill you want to learn is how to recognize a partner that can be trusted. That's it. Like, it's a whole module in my program, how to know when he's the one. I've done a free training on it in the past, but it's a skill to how to know when he's the one. For those of us who've been divorced, many of us come out of our divorces like, I am never doing that again. I am never dating again, because we don't know that we can prevent it from happening again. And part of getting coached and learning to date is learning how to make sure that doesn't happen to you again. Okay, so that was your second question. The first one that you had asked was, how do I overcome the fear of being alone? So that's we would have to talk about, and I know many people, when I'm coaching them on this, don't want to go there. Like, if imagine that you are 85 and you are alone, what is the scariest thing about that? What's interesting is that for most people, what's scariest about that is just the image that society has about being alone. Like, somehow, like, you are the cat lady, you are the old hag down by the river. You're like, listen, we're just older women who are alone are painted a certain way. There's nothing wrong with an older woman being alone. Just nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. But you have certain thoughts that are probably legitimate that make that scary for you. And so we would have to coach on what those thoughts are. Is it, maybe you feel like you would die alone, or nobody would be there for you, you wouldn't have any friends. Like, whatever the fear is, we've got to go. We have to go in there, and we have to heal that, and we have to, like, create wholeness around you being alone. Because when you are afraid of being alone, that fear drives you to either just be with someone who isn't right for you, or it makes you so scared that anxiety spills into everything that you're doing when you're dating, and you just don't have the energy to show up as your authentic self. So the goal would be to go through the process of learning what that fear is. What is it about being alone that is so scary, and how can we heal that so that you, like, that burden just is off your shoulders and you feel free, and you can actually then go towards finding a partner. I will give my example. I healed that part of myself that was afraid of being alone, and I embraced the possibility that, I don't know, if I don't find somebody, I will be alone. Right? I was like, okay, I might not. Because listen, the me that you're talking to now is not the me that started dating. Just so to be clear. So I had a whole bunch of all this thinking too. I had all this thinking. And so the way I did, and so when I worked through the fear and I released the fear of being alone, I was like, well, if I don't find a husband, I'm just going to do my Golden Girls. I'm going to get my sister. She wasn't married at the time. She's married now. I'm going to get my sister, like my best friend, this other friend, and we're going to like get rich, and we're going to buy a big house, and we're going to hang out together. I lost the fear of being alone, and that gave me options. I was able to see other opportunities for creating the life that I wanted beyond just finding a husband. Finding a husband is not the only way to be happy and healthy and have an amazing life. There's so many ways, so many different ways, okay? But you won't see those opportunities unless you let go of the fear. So that would be my coaching for you. All right, final question. Mary, you can unmute. Let's go. I can try to unmute you. Let me see if I can do it.
Oh, I got it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
There you are.
Hi. And I will say, Sade, you are not the same person you were in 2016 when I met you.
That's for sure. 100%. 100%.
Oh my gosh. So different. So
good to see you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And you inspired me along my journey.
Thank you. Thank you. So, what's your goal? What are we working on?
So my divorce is final in November. And
yes, let's celebrate. Let's take a minute. Yes. We celebrate divorces around here.
I love it. I was going to have a party, and then I just didn't.
I know. People are like, that's tacky. I'm like, what? A party?
No, it's not.
Let's do it. I'm down. Like, I'm still in the area. So like, I'll come for your divorce party.
Okay. So like my mindset is like, I'm perfectly happy being independent. I'm happy being by myself. I'm 100% content with that. And, I just want to focus on my goals and healing myself and I have a lot of emotional work that needs to happen. Mm-hmm. But like my hairstylist asked me Friday, she's like, so have you started dating yet? And I was like, hell no.
Yeah.
Like, I keep saying I will be happy if I'm still single when Jesus comes. Like, I'm good with that. Like, I don't even want to go there, because like literally I was thinking about this in the process of my divorce. I've only been married once. But every single man that I've been in a lot of relationships, every single man I've been with has cheated on me. Not one single man has ever been faithful to me. So tell me why I should consider getting married again or dating? Like, no.
Yeah.
I'm just very no.
That's an excellent question. And listen, you're not alone. This is every woman's, well, not every woman's journey, but like all those who are doing this work, divorce, toxic relationships, and stuff like that. And I will say, like, it's just a pattern. You just have a pattern and you're not doing it on purpose. Even pattern may not be the best way to say it. I think when I'm working with my clients, I call it an emotional imprint. So an emotional imprint is like a cookie cutter, right? And like when you cut the batter, it just comes out in the same shape over and over. Somewhere along the way, you picked up the programming that makes those types of people attractive. That's all it is. And it's not conscious, because who would consciously choose a man who cheats?
Right.
Like nobody would do that. It's not conscious. It's unconscious. It's the limiting beliefs underneath. And so that's work that you have to do to heal. You have to heal that specific pattern in your brain. There are different ways of doing that. Sometimes with some of my clients, we go to, okay, where did that pattern come from? Like, who was the first person in your life who was that kind of person? Maybe they may not have cheated, but maybe they were a liar or an addict or whatever. Could be a caregiver. Sometimes there's that, and you get programmed that way just as a child, and you choose that over and over because it feels like home. It feels normal. But it's so easy to change your emotional imprint. It's literally like, oh, okay, I have this pattern of thinking that I'm not quite aware of that causes me to think these people are safe. All right, let's dig into whatever that pattern of thinking is. How was I thinking when I met this first person? What happened? Where did I miss the signs? Why did I miss the signs? And creating that awareness and then choosing to change it. Learning. And so not only do you like figure out how, and the reason we do the back work is not to like just dredge up everything, is to see what that pattern looks like specifically for you. Because it looks different for everyone. So for me, like I chose a certain type of man and even dated a couple of people kind of like my ex, because he was kind of like my dad. And like there were the signs, and it took me a minute to fix that, to change the pattern of thinking and to reform my attraction so that what was a healthy partner was attractive to me. Most of us don't even know what a healthy partner really looks like. One of the things I'm working on this week is a list of 50 signs of a healthy partner. Like, I'm like, okay, people need a checklist. We're going to create a checklist.
Seriously.
Because literally, people don't know.
I've never been taught that.
Right. And so that's the work. So not only will you have the checklist, you need the checklist, but then even if you have the checklist, if you still have like denial or if the subconscious thinking is there, our brains have a way with the cookie cutter of reframing what we see to fit what we want to see. And that's why the other work is still important. We reframe the situation, we minimize the problems, all of that. So that's just a think. And once you heal that, you will feel the self-trust and the confidence that if you did decide to date again, you would know exactly how to choose someone. Another part of the work with this is also doing a relationship audit with the people around you. For many of us, our ex was not the only toxic person. And that was when I was like, oh, I'm just comfortable around toxic people. There you go. Right. And so changing your whole outlook on relationships is going to be part of that work. So I would start by exploring, make a list of all the guys. And the moment you decided that this was the one, what were you thinking? Because it's always about our thinking. Explore that, and you'll start to see the pattern emerge. You'll start to see the part of you that was attracted to that. And once you can identify it, it makes it easier to take control of it. The reason you don't want to date, at least from what you've told me, is because you believe you're going to repeat it. And you might if you don't fix this part. So we want to fix this part. Wow. Don't worry about dating. Fix this part. Let that be the goal. My goal is to change my emotional imprint, to do relationship and a relationship audit, to change who I'm comfortable around, and then revisit the decision to date.
Wow.
All right.
It's good. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's good to see you. All right. I'm going to do one more because Yemi had a really good question. I'm going to answer it real quick. And then thank you guys for staying over a little bit. I think my fear is that if a guy really gets to know me, they won't like the authentic me. Yes, that is a real thing. And that you definitely want to work on that. The reason you feel that potentially, again, I can't be 100% because I'm not coaching you live, is that you are not in full 100% acceptance of who you are. You're probably somewhat disconnected from your authentic self. maybe because your authentic self was rejected by your ex or rejected in childhood, like whatever those experiences are that have informed you thinking that there are parts of you that are not acceptable. And when you believe that there are parts of you that are not acceptable, well, of course, you're not going to want to put those parts in front of someone. And if you meet a guy, he's going to eventually see all the parts of you. But that's not true. That's always a lie. That there is something wrong with your authentic self is always a lie. It's always a lie that we have taken in from our programming. And I resonate with that because I felt that. Like, and not just with dating, like my whole life, right? There were parts of myself that I felt like were not acceptable to other people, things like that. So that's a real thing, but it's not true. It feels true. It will feel true in your body. It will feel true in like your heart and your emotions. But then that's the work. The emotion that generally comes with not feeling like our authentic self is acceptable is usually shame. And so my guess is you have some shame. And it sends the message that you're not acceptable. When others shame you, it sends the message that you're not acceptable, whether it's in childhood or whatever. And then it trains you to shame yourself for making normal human mistakes. And so that's the work. If a guy really gets to know you, if the right guy gets to know you, he will like you. However, you won't be able to put your authentic self out there until you heal how you feel about your authentic self and healing that shame. So, and I'm glad you're in my program because Yemi, we can do that work. Like Yemi, she's a client. So we can get started with that on the calls this week. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your questions. Everyone, oh my gosh, you guys just bring me so much joy because I love this work. It is a delight. And I couldn't do this work if you guys didn't come and give me the opportunity to share my gifts with you. So thank you for showing up tonight. I appreciate it so much. Tomorrow we will meet at the same time and same thing on Thursday. Tomorrow we will be talking about just healing some of these patterns. So I'll dive a little deeper into some of these patterns and some tools that you can use to heal them. For those of you that are interested in working with me, you can go ahead and book a consult. The link I sent you tells you about my program. It also has a link to book a consult. If you have questions, you can book a consult with me. You don't have to wait till Thursday. We can just kind of get that ball rolling. Otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.